Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about electric scooters. There is a new flooding of it in the market right now. So what exactly we are talking about here? We are talking about almost a new gold rush that's going on in the Indian market with EV two-wheelers. Now the primary reason for that is Indian people are not that rich where every Tom, Dick and Harry can afford a car, and not to mention because of the population density, we cannot physically have roads to compensate for that if 1.5 billion people started to buy cars. So two-wheelers are a really viable way of communicating in India, like really important, almost backbone level technology for Indians. So two-wheelers are very important, and petrol prices are going up YOLO levels. So in those sort of scenario, this technology starts to look like a new frontier. And there are many. The first question that people ask at this point in time is like, which EV should I buy? Here's the deal: because it's a two-wheeler, because it's far more personal equipment compared to a car. The only way to know is do a goddamn test drive. If you cannot do a test drive, do not buy it. Under no circumstances buy, pre-order it or something like that. Unless you have a proper test driving, do not do it, because human bodies are different. It has like, for example, if your body weight is let's say 50 kilograms, and you have a vehicle that does not have too much torque, but for 50 kilograms it's enough, you may be like, dude, this is more than good enough, I do not need to pay more. And if you do like, let's say your body weight is high, and you may be like, hey, I'm buying this but does not have too much oomph, the torque level is not too high, you will feel sluggish, you will feel unsafe, you will like, dude, I'm pushing the accelerator, it's not going as fast, I cannot overtake reliably. So in those sort of scenario, that's why I'm saying always do goddamn test driving. Without it, do not buy any of these equipments. Now the primary benefit India and Indian government will get if this becomes successful is that reduction of oil import. Two-wheelers, while they are not consuming like gigatons of fuel, they are consuming big enough chunk of Indian oil imports. Reducing even a small percentage of that is significant. And now many people may say, oh, what's the difference? It's like, instead of importing oil, we're gonna import lithium. Lithium is a mineral, and minerals are stable. Like, basically you import it, it does not go poof. Oil, to give you a context of that, like the oil consumption of Indian naval department is so high that like gigatons of oil, poof, gone, forget about it. Now if you imported, let's say, gigatons of lithium, that will satisfy us for a few years or at least few months. So get that point. Like, that's why reduction of oil import is far higher priority than reduction of import minerals. So that's very good for national economy. Basically it stabilizes the government. And then CO2 reduction, that's an added bonus. And be very mindful looking at all the real world test data. Do not expect any of these puppy to cross more than 100 kilometers. They will claim magic numbers like 230, 170, wala. Do not focus on that. If you are lucky, you will get 100 kilometers. That should be your mental image about that. Like, basically do not pay attention to the range ratings they are providing. The ideal conditions are too ludicrous to exist in India. So please be very mindful. Like, if your commute is like, let's say, 50-60 kilometers per day, do not touch these puppies. If you are under around 20-25 kilometers, that's awesome, especially if you have two riders. Basically, if you are using this sort of vehicle for delivering your kids to school, in those sort of scenario, please be mindful. Do not have like very long range commutes. If you have, you will be stranded. So there's a lot of options in the market. Now, at this point in time, Indian government has failed us horridly. Like, they have destroyed us. That's how badly they failed us, because they failed to standardize it. Now, standardization is one of those things that you may not think too much about it, but it's really very important, and one of the primary reasons why EVs are not catching up. Think of it this way: when you go to a fuel pump, it does not matter whether it's from Reliance, it does not matter from Indian Oil, Hindustan Petroleum, it does not matter. You just go and you're like, oil, basically petrol or diesel, done, go home, sweet dreams. You do not think too much about it. But in EV, everybody is going hulululu. Now, consequence of that is like Western world learned this the hard way, that EVs will never catch on unless we have something that standardized, like compared to oil. Basically, you just go to a recharging station, done. You do not think more than that. So they created a standard, combined charge standard. It failed. Then they created CCS2, combined charge standard Mark II, this puppy. Now this is awesome, and this works right now. This is used in China, this is used in Europe, this is used in America. This is one of the most well thought out. Again, this is Mark II variant, so of course they have fixed it. A lot of issues, and they have learned a lot. So this puppy, that smaller variant is basically AC level 1 and level 2 charging, and this big boy is DC fast charging. Now that this DC fast charging can go as high as 300 kilowatt. Now be very mindful, we are talking about two-wheeler EVs which barely have 10 kilowatt hour battery bank, so you do not need that level of DC charging. And people who designed the CCS structure, they have thought of that. So they have DC charging option in AC plug also. If you have the proper handshake, you can do DC fast charging without needing this custom port. So every channel, like this is from Hero, basically electric scooty. This is very low cost, so I do understand it. But again, this does create an issue. It's like it's a custom port. Now, thankfully, that port is similar to what you get on your power supply. So it is something that you can buy. But again, that creates an issue. It's not something that you just don't think about. Like, have you ever thought about like what is the snout angle of a basically fuel delivery device? You don't have to think about it. It's standardized. But here you have to think about it, or you have to carry your own. Then say, this is from Altair, and literally looks like they took it at the CCS standard 2 and then just went to a supplier and it's like, hey, can you change the data pin from 2 to 4? That's what they did. It literally looks like that. This is hyper stupid. This is from Ola. This has like two huge prawns. They are like, we wanted to DC fast charge. No, this is just stupid. This literally creates a scenario where, for example, let's say you are a aspiring startup and you're like, hey, you know what, there is a very huge demand and you're seeing at the sales number that, like, 50,000 Altair was sold, 60,000 Olas are sold. You're thinking, you know what, there would be a huge demand for fast charging or EV charging stations. Here's the deal, you cannot do anything about it, because again, you have to have multiple chargers. You have to have CCS for electric car charging. You have to have Altair port for Altair charging. You have to have a Hero port for Hero charging. You have to have Ola port for Ola charging. This is not gonna work economically. This cannot work. So this is really, really bad. This custom solution for everyone is really bad. This is a really big bitch slap to EV industry, because this directly will cause an issue where people are like, you know what, I tried EV but it's too much hassle and I will stop using it. There is a reason why computers became successful after USB became USB. So universal network part. That's why this is very important, and failure to implement that as a standard. Like, think of this way. Let's say you can go to a charging station which has like, hey, I can charge your car with awesome energy. You drive up, like, let's say this is running out of juice and you're like, hey, only have 1 kilometer range, one car charging is electric car charging is there, I'm gonna go there. It's like, yeah, can't help you, buddy. This is unacceptable. This is like fundamentally creating issue where infrastructure cannot ever grow, ever catch up, and customers have to suffer the consequences of that. Because yeah, Ola is saying, yo, we're gonna have fast charging. It's like 70,000 fast charging in India. I'm like, dude, a small bank has that many ATMs in India. So to serve 1.5 billion people, or to serve millions of units that you are selling, that number is just too goddamn small. That's why you have to have standardization, where people who are investing into Ola system, they are still building a charging infrastructure. Altair people still building charging station. All of them can, if cross utilize it, everybody wins. It's like, a rising tide lifts up all ship. That's the same issue here. It's like this failure is brutal. Now we have to also understand another aspect of this. Equipments are expensive. Now again, many people are rich enough where for 2 lakh rupees they'll be like, yeah, who cares, I'm gonna throw it away in 1 or 2 years. I'm not that rich. Most of you may not be that rich. So this is what we classify as long-term commitment, meaning it must serve for 5 years without any issue, and we should be able to stretch this puppy to 10 years. That's the desirable time frame. Now 2 lakh rupees is a lot. Now be mindful, every time when you look into it, you're like, 1,35,000, but by the time you add all the service charges, all the extra charges, all the charging charges, you will find that it's 2 lakh more or less. So that's a serious amount of money. That's no joke amount of money. At that point in time, having a realistic check where you cannot do any third-party servicing into these things, meaning seller is the only option. Meaning if you buy a Ola equipment, only Ola can repair it. If you buy Altair equipment, only Altair can repair it. That is not wise, especially in long term. And be mindful, these companies are not like Honda, Maruti, or Mahindra, where they have almost 50 years of market experience. Like, for a fact that this company is gonna survive. These companies are new. We can literally have a scenario where one of these company goes poof, and you have left with a fancy paperweight. So that is one of the things that are very problematic, especially in long term. Not an issue in 1 or 2 years, but really an issue once you start to reach that 5-year mark. And then we come to the fact that all of them are using way too much custom part, even though they are what we classify as scooty. You will think like they will have the core framework of a scooty, but no, everything has been redesigned. And many times some redesign does make sense. Like, if you are redesigning the frame so you can have lower center of gravity because of the battery bank, makes sense. But other times it's like, dude, you are changing that just for the changing that. Now that may sound awesome, but the consequence, servicing becomes impossible. And if your company goes under, everybody who bought this goes under also. So it's one of those things where it's like, people really have to think about it. Right now, everybody is taking a risk, what you call leap of faith. If it works, awesome. If it does not, whew, I really don't want to be near that. Then we come to the most weak link in the system, battery. Now battery has the simple chemistry based law of physics applied to it, meaning if you take two cells, For example, you buy a mobile phone that has 4000 milliamp hour cell versus, let's say, Samsung F62, which I have, that has 7000 milliamp hour cell. Now you use these puppy for 2 years continuously, 24 into 7 into 365. Here's the how much energy loss would have, capacity loss would have happened in each of the cell. Here's the deal: the bigger cell will have lower loss percentage, meaning it will only lose, let's say, 30% of its capacity, while a smaller cell will lose upwards of 45% capacity. This is based on chemistry. It cannot be changed, it cannot be bargained with. This is by default. That's why Apple specifically designs larger phones which has two smaller cells, because two smaller cells dies quickly. That allows you to what we call planned obsolescence. That's why, like, you will always find Samsung using L cells. Why the heck they are L? So they can make sure it becomes e-waste very quickly. It's very smart, because on paper it's a 4000 milliamp hour cell, but here's the deal: it has lifespan of 2000 milliamp hour cell, because there are two tiny cells inside. Super awesome. I mean, like, whoever come up with that, evil award, man, evil award. So you get that point. Now same logic applies on battery banks also, meaning if you have, again, unless you are talking about drastically different size of cells, you will have the same principle. Meaning if, let's say, 18650 is used for your EV scooty, 18650 has been used for your basically car battery will last much longer lifespan wise. So meaning car battery at this point in time should easily survive 10 years of use. I mean, like, good use, not abusive use, but good use. 10 years you should not have to worry about it. After that you have to have a few options after that. But in when you are talking about something this small, it is an issue where you cannot just, like, okay, let's just toss the whole cell, because again this will happen quicker, meaning you are talking about potentially 5 years. So in those sort of scenario, what are our options? The most economic, most environmental friendly option is cell level refurbishment, meaning you're gonna open the pack and check each cell, because generally whenever you are having this sort of scenario, it's like, cell is not the BMS is tripping way too early, BMS is not giving enough range, enough accurate reading. Generally there is one bad cell. Because be mindful, whenever you are adding a lot of cells, like 600 cells or, like, hundreds of cells in this sort of scenario, you are dealing with a problem of manufacturing, meaning there is no technology that will allow you to make chemistry powder that accurately, whereas, like, hundreds of the packaging is absolutely perfect. It's not gonna be the same, meaning some cells will degrade much faster than others, and that issue will not be something apparent in first month of testing, but after a while it will start to creep up. Then after 2 years it's like, whoa, one cell alone is discharging too much, and then it can bring down the whole battery pack. It has happened. More than enough people have dealt with this, and people who have built their custom EV battery banks, that's the prime reason for that. It's just because they know which cell is acting up, and they can replace that cell alone, and then you're like, we got this. So doing that from a company, again, I do not expect this to be done by a consumer, but I do expect this to be done by factories, where they're like, hey, we know we have sold, like, let's say 1 million of these units, we should have the capacity of, like, managing the batteries also, because if you do that, that extends the lifespan without adding too much cost. It just have a service charge of the employee who are doing the deleting, desoldering and all that jazz, and then again the replacement of new cells, and it does reduce e-waste, which is really desirable. If unless whole country starts to make EVs, we have to figure out how to reduce e-waste before we figure out how to recycle it. So that's a desirable option, and company have to take action about this, because what car companies are doing right now, it's not long-term stable. It's short-term, because again short-term right now is 10 years, but short term from 10 years from now, it's like, oh, wait a minute, we ran out of that honeymoon period phase. So that's one of those things that people have to deal with. This company have to take attention, or buyer will be left with very expensive paperweight, and that has a serious issue of creating a bitter sentiment towards EV, where people will, like, even if future EVs are awesome, they will, like, I will not never buy it again, because of the bad taste people have to suffer because of stupid designs. So this is one of those things that we have to learn to really solve, otherwise everybody will suffer because of this. So what we can expect in the future? Well, right now there is what I can see in Indian market is a lot of unsatisfied customer due to over promise and under deliver. Meaning all of these EVs are claiming, like, more than 100-kilometer range. None of them is giving you real world 100-kilometer with your eyes closed. Now there are two reasons for that. First, a car is far more easily to calculate, and because car is much heavier, a person going in and out is not changing percentage too much. But when you're talking about scooters, it is changing a lot. So again, a person weighing, let's say, 70 kg versus 80 kg, it does changes a range a lot. So the fact that each of these companies are claiming more than 100, and most of them are failing to deliver 100 reliably, they're like, no, the weather was too hot. It's like, dude, I can't control the weather. So in this sort of scenario, it is really range anxiety issuing, because yes, while 100 may sound awesome, that means you have to be very methodical with charging, meaning you have to charge. If you go to office and office is like around 20 kilometers, you have to charge at office. If you're coming, do not go to any other station, because you will be in a scenario where it's like, oops, I'm out of charge. And not to mention, because EV charging is not standardized, you cannot just go to a, like, the nearest charging station and charge it. Hope that you have Ola charging if you have Ola bike, or Altair if you have Altair. So in those sort of scenarios, you get that point. Like, you will be lucky if you get 100 kilometers reliably, and good luck getting that after 2 or 3 years, because again, smaller pack, shorter lifespan. And if you have two people, again, this is a two-wheeler for two people, good luck getting 50. So this is one of those things that you have to understand. People are buying this, trying to replace their petrol system. While petrol systems are far more expensive, they are far more dependable. This EV system is just not as dependable as it needs to be. So, and EV charging is a hassle for everyone is suffering because of this. So a lot of improvements have to be done, specifically in their algorithms that detects a range. It cannot be like, it's showing 75 and it's like poof, it ran out in 60. It cannot do that. Again, it is doing that, and more than enough people are like, you know what, this is garbage, let me never buy an EV again. And I don't want that to happen. So I do not see a bright future of these sort of puppies any longer. It's like, the more I look into it, the more I'm seeing the, like, people's first-hand experience. People are actually pushing the system to the limit. They're like, dude, it claimed 120 kilometer, I'm barely getting 95. So this is one of those scenarios where it's like, over promising and under delivering, and I do not think that's a good thing. So this was my presentation on basically electric scooty rush that is going on right now. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.